Well, Tesla's charging network facing new competition as 7 car makers join forces to create a new high-powered charging network.
Well, it's big, it's bold, and it's gorgeous. And what you've got is 1.9 million of pre-orders. That's a huge number.
Just wonder if they're listening to the customer or trying to force something on the customer that the customers are saying, we don't want.
You know, looking at some of the comments coming through here, Jim Farley saying that the shift to this digital experiences breakthrough EV is underway, but it's going to be volatile.
All that and more, so let's get to it. Tesla stock sitting at 258.69, a little lower than the last time I left you, but up 1.17% in the pre-market, possibly a sign of better things to come for the following week. I guess we'll have to wait and see. Going back a week, Tesla's down a little over 1.5%, but over the past 30 days, Tesla is up over 1.5%. We're experiencing a little bit of a consolidation. No surprise, as the stock almost hit $300 per share, people are taking some profits, leaving me to believe that maybe I should have sold my call for September, but that's another story. I still got a little bit of time for maybe a correction, but the real question is, where to from here? I already sold the put I bought on July 25th. I bought the option contract at $560, ended up selling it for $1,000. I'll go ahead and round up those profits to $500. 25% for taxes, 25% of $500.
It's $125.
So I'll take the $125 and move that over to my tax bill that I won't look at until February or so. I'll most likely take the remainder of that and repurpose that to buying shares of Tesla. Since the implied volatility of the options contracts right now are so low, the thought has crossed my mind of purchasing a long-term call that might expire in 2025. But internally, I've told myself to wait until about the middle of August to see where that pans out. Should the stock end up plunging through my support level, all bets might be off.
Tesla's charging network facing new competition as 7 car makers join forces to create a new high-powered charging network. Here with the details, we have Yahoo Finance's Praz Subramanian. Praz, this is an interesting alliance that also includes those who have aligned themselves with Tesla before.
Yeah. So 7 automakers, like you said, BMW, GM, Honda, Hyundai, Kia, Mercedes-Benz, and Stellantis joining this sort of joint venture to spend close to $1 billion, what the journal is reporting, on a 30,000 plug network across North America. Interestingly, it will include both the CCS, which is a standard connector, and the NACS, which is Tesla's de facto, or almost going to be the de facto standard in the U.S. That's sort of what people are thinking. But this is a way for the automakers like GM and also Mercedes and also BMW to kind of strike their own path and sort of have their own destiny in the charging world. They want to try to actually kind of have a competitor to Tesla, but also they'll use that standard, and they need to use that standard because they need to actually get some government money to build out this network, and that's how you do that, is by being open source in some sense.
Good on those 7 automakers for coming together and doing something that they more than likely should have been doing about half a decade ago. But you know the old adage, better late than never. It's pretty tough to say this fledgling, infant supercharging network that these 7 companies plan to create is going to compete with Tesla, considering Tesla is setting a pretty high bar. And just like the battery electric vehicles that Tesla makes, the superchargers are everywhere. And it doesn't matter how much money these individual companies plan to make, if their chargers suck, they'll get no more traffic than EVgo or Electrify America or whomever. And though Tesla's EV market share is destined to fall, it's currently at 60%. That is a lot of battery electric vehicles, over half on the road right now. Good luck trying to steal those Tesla customers to your inferior supercharger network, whose supercharging experience has been nothing less than seamless.
Joining us now is widely followed Tesla watcher and future fund managing partner and co-founder Gary Black. So Gary, listen, I got a lot of creative comments on Twitter, X, whatever, on the Cybertruck. Everything from I love it, can't wait to take ownership, to something about a Pontiac Aztec Honda Ridgeline love child. Anyway, we did a little poll on this. Look at this. 50% of the people said they love it. 33% said they hate it. I don't know, 16% said they're not sure. I don't know how people are not sure of anything, but do you take solace from the pictures and from the public small sample reaction?
Well, it's big, it's bold, and it's gorgeous. And what you've got is 1.9 million of pre-orders. That's a huge number. And what's going to happen is this thing's going to start deliveries probably end of third quarter. It's be priced, the base model be priced right below $50,000, and it's going to start rolling across America. It's going to be like a rolling billboard, and people are going to see it, and they're going to be like, wow, that's really interesting. And they're going to go to the website, and they're going to order a Model 3 or a Model Y or a Model S or a Model X or a Cybertruck, and you're going to produce this whole halo effect, which is exactly what happened back in 20 when the Model Y first came out and people didn't know what to make of it. This is even more grand because it's not going to cannibalize any of the base products, because Tesla has never been in the pickup truck business. So you're not going to cannibalize anything. So it's going to be a home run for Tesla, and it's going to really catapult the stock, and it's going to really catapult volumes into next year.
Color me part of that 50%. And when it goes to the 16% that's unsure, in my humble opinion, those are the individuals that are scared of what the other 33% might think of them for having purchased something that they hate. Me, I can give two shits what anybody else thinks. This right here, this truck right here, will be nothing short of the best battery electric vehicle on the market. And that's why I'm in line. I don't know when I'll get mine. I'm hoping sometime before 2025. I will not be canceling my reservation for anything. This will be my next vehicle.
Well, I appreciate the optimism. Let's throw the pictures back up. I want our audience to look at them. Again, this is not the full Cybertruck. The trim is kind of hidden. That's the video of what they've advertised. We're showing now, Gary, which is not really what the picture is because they're trying to mask some things. We certainly get that. But it's a unique looking vehicle. I'm not sure what you can do with it, right? You can tow stuff, I guess. What's the purpose of this, I think?
It's positioned as a pickup truck lovers, especially if they're a little younger. The 65-year-old may not like it, but the 40 to 50-something pickup truck owner will love it. It's very different. It's powerful. It'll go from 0 to 60 in 2.5 seconds. It'll tow as much as an F-150 does. And I'm telling you, once it's out there, people are not going to be resistant. You stand next to it. I'm a big guy. I'm 6'2", and I stand next to it, and the thing just dwarfs me. It's huge, but it's beautiful. When you look at it, there is nothing else on the market like it. And so go out 3 or 4 years from now, you're going to have this Cybertruck, and let's suppose it's doing 350 to 400,000 units a year, and the street's only looking for about 150,000 a year. So that's worth 60 cents a share in earning. You could then bring out a smaller one if you wanted to, that looks like that would basically sell very well in Europe or in Asia as well. So I think I think people are missing the whole point in this, that not just do people want a Cybertruck, but just it being out there, it's going to create a halo effect for the entire Tesla franchise, just like what happened when Model Y came out in 20 and 2020. And you remember what happened to Tesla's stock price in 20. It went up 7-fold because everybody got excited about Model Y, new TAM, incremental volume. Volumes went from 36% growth in 2020 to 87% in 2021. You're going to see the same thing happen next year with the entire Tesla franchise.
Yeah. Now, if you've been following the stock at any measure, 2021, that 7-fold increase, that's when everybody got that FOMO. And 2022 was a reality check, not just for Tesla, but the entire tech industry. The bears feasted. But now, 2023, we're at a new day. This time next year, if Tesla is ramping up the Cybertruck to their expectations, I wouldn't be surprised to see another vault in the stock. I'm talking about we're sitting at 256 right now. This time next year, we could easily be at 1,000 if we have a similar effect that the Model Y had to the Tesla stock. And Gary's 100% correct. We're entering a new market. There is no cannibalization for any of those previous vehicles. The Model X, the Model S, the Model Y, the Model 3. The Cybertruck's going to be in a category of its own. And if this thing is priced under $50,000, oh my goodness. Total addressable market for this product will be insane.
My only concern, listen, as a guy that tows a lot of stuff, the range is not going to be good. So, no electric car can tow anything for very long. But that said,
This will. The battery's going to be huge, Brian.
Get 'em!
How big? Like how far I know we don't know all the specs, but the F-150 Lightning, if I towed my small boat, I'm getting like 150 miles, then I got to unplug the trailer to back the car and to charge it. Like, no, I'm sorry, I'm not going to do that for the price. Is this going to be better than that? Can I make it from, if I'm a rich tech bro, and that's who's going to buy these at first, can I make it from Atherton to my chalet in Tahoe on a charge?
You'll be able to go, even towing something, And again, you have a double motor, a two motor Cybertruck, a tri-motor Cybertruck, and a quad motor Cybertruck. And it's going to have a huge battery. You'll be able to go at least 300 miles on the small one, probably 500 miles on the big one. And you're right, we haven't heard specs given out, but I think it's going to be such a compelling value for a pickup truck owner. A lot of people are going to buy one, and a lot of people are going to be very excited about it, and they're going to tell their friends, and then everybody's going to want a Cybertruck. Just like, think about Model Y. This thing came out in 2020. It's now the best-selling vehicle in the world. Think about that.
Yeah.
Before I go off too far on a tangent, I just want to say that these are just obstacles for Teslas, not barriers. The Tesla team will be tackling these challenges into the future. If we can see the challenges ahead, what do you think the company that was the catalyst of the battery electric vehicle movement can see? And second, this is just a small percentage of the people that will be buying the Cybertruck. The benefits of the Cybertruck will far outweigh the minor inconveniences that may arise when you're talking about the value of this vehicle.
Outselling, so I think I saw a story outselling Toyota now in California, but I feel like it's a coastal phenomenon so far. The middle of the country.
Model Y is not, Brian. Model Y is the best-selling vehicle in the world for the first quarter and likely in the second quarter. And again, with Cybertruck, 1.9 million pre-orders. And yeah, anybody, including me, put a pre-order in. But I would bet, and this is what Tesla's telling its suppliers, they're going to do 375,000 a year. Once they get ramped up, they're going to build this thing in Texas in the Austin plant. 375,000 a year is a lot of trucks.
That's a lot of fucking trucks. And to touch on that Model Y is the best-selling vehicle in the world, and it only took a few years to get there. This, it's just a coastal phenomenon thing. Bullshit! Best-selling vehicle compared to vehicles that are being sold at $20,000. That white noise. Best-selling vehicle on the planet. Coastal phenomenon, my ass.
Do you think that not just Ford, but the other automakers, not named Tesla, are listening?
Well, I think they are. I mean, the bottom line, Brian, is you're seeing EV sales grow pretty heady here in the U.S., right? In the second quarter, the EV market hit a record. We'll probably sell about 1 million EVs in the U.S. this year in total. And the market share of EVs is about 7%, which is about double what it was last year.
Double, you say? That might be exponential growth we're talking about.
The problem is that demand for EVs is not keeping up with production, right? You have, all the automakers introducing these new products this year. There's a lot more coming next year. And when you look at some of the barriers like price.
Thanks to the IRA, you can now buy a battery electric vehicle way under the average selling price of those in North America.
Range.
What are you doing? You're doing coastal trips? You're going from LA to New York every weekend? Get the out of here. Most people don't need more than 250 miles a day.
And charging infrastructures.
Charging infrastructure, it is quite robust and growing quickly.
Getting early adopters to buy your product is one thing.
That's easy.
Getting mass adoption is a whole lot harder.
Yeah. Listen, I get it. But let's forget about demand for EVs. We know the demand is growing, right? 93% of Americans still on gas, but demand is growing. But they're losing $20,000 to $30,000 per car. So how do you turn that around? Because I'm sorry, as much as I might love the Mach-E, I'm not paying $100,000 for it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the key, right? Going forward, what the automakers do is they use their first generation product to learn and look at, how they can improve on the second generation platform, which, automakers like Ford are going to be doing in the next couple of years to bring the cost down. But the chicken and the egg problem, Brian, is, in the auto industry, it's all about scale and driving piece costs down. That means you have to be running your plants at literally full capacity. And the challenge for the automakers with the EVs is, listen, since the take-up is slower, how do they get those plants up to full capacity so they can get the cost down and also apply that to the next generation model? So at some point, for those automakers that have these, dedicated facilities, they're going to be faced with a choice. Do I discount the product to keep the plant going and get that scale? Or do I potentially take downtime at the plant, which is a big financial hit?
We ever seen that movie 127 Hours? Yeah, that one. Ford, GM, name your legacy OEM, they're James Franco in this situation. Now they've entered uncharted territory and they're stuck there because EVs are here. The mass majority of individuals that have electric vehicles will never go back to internal combustion engines. So now they're pinned between a rock and a hard place while their internal combustion engine, that pinned limb that is slowly but surely dying, is going to be choked out with every passing moment. Right now it's early. You're not ready to concede that you're ready to chop off that limb just yet. I mean, it's still, you got feeling in there. But anybody watching this movie knows how this situation has to end. For James Franco to survive, aka Ford, GM, all those legacy OEMs, they're going to have to cut off that dying limb eventually. They're still making money off of it. They still got feeling in that limb. But there will be a tough decision to be had. In about 4 to 5 years, that decision will be painfully obvious. And those that take the steps early to cut that business out are the ones that are going to survive.
UAW contract negotiation coming up. The UAW, my guess is, and I haven't spoken to them to be fair, but I'd love to, and by the way, they're welcome on the air anytime. Probably not a huge fan of EVs because they don't use as many parts. The deal will get done, and if the other deals that we've seen, longshoremen, UPS, pilots, the TSA, we'll tell you about that in a second, they're getting 30 and 40% raises, which we love, by the way. We want people to make as much money as possible, but how in the world are costs going to come down when labor costs are going to go higher, Mark? Hard stop.
Well, when you look at the UAW contract coming up this year, yeah, the optics are the automakers have paid a lot of money in the last 4 years. There's new leadership in the UAW, and they feel like they have a mandate. And so they're going to want more, raises. They're going to want, cost of living adjustments, pension improvements. To your point, they really want to make sure that these battery plants that currently now pay at a lower rate than being in, one of the traditional plants, they're going to want that addressed. And the bottom line is you are going to see costs go up. That's just a fact of life that the automakers are probably planning for. But keep in mind, Brian, labor is less than 10% of the cost of a vehicle. But to your point, I think what you're going to see out of the automakers, and you saw this out of GM this week, where they added another $1 billion of cost reduction over the next year. That's anticipating higher labor costs, but they have to keep working down the base cost of the business to afford these EVs.
Ooh, the pressure on that limb is getting tight, boys. The UAW presents a significant challenge for North American automakers. And you're damn right, it's tough and getting tougher.
A week on average, Mark. I'm telling you, I see the new Bronco everywhere. By the way, if it's a 4-door, the 2-door is a little funky if it's small, but the big Bronco, I see it everywhere. I don't see a lot of Mach-E's, and I just hope Ford, which is a great company, F-150 is fantastic. I have a lot of friends there. I hope they're listening. I just wonder if they're listening to the customer or trying to force something on the customer that the customers are saying, we don't want.
Well, for right now, the whole industry is faced with that exact issue, which is, it's about cost, and the industry is going to solve that over the next couple of years. It's around range. That's going to, get solved. But the real issue, Brian, to your point, is convenience for the customer. There has to be a compelling reason to buy these EVs. And if I don't have a 2-car garage that I can, charge my vehicle at night, it's going to inconvenience me to spend 45 minutes at a charger to fill up, if you will. You could argue that this isn't going to be solved until you get to, solid state EVs, which have a much shorter charging time and more akin to filling up at the gas station.
I think that the solid state battery will be the game changer. I wonder if it's like 1910 right now for EVs.
They don't have time to wait for solid state. Listen, the truth of the matter is, all the legacy OEMs are having things done to them. Tesla has put them in a precarious situation to where battery electric vehicles are better than their internal combustion engine variants. Battery electric vehicle adoption has doubled since last year. That's a problem. Ignore those warning bells at your own peril. Kodak, Blockbuster. The trick is GM, Ford, they're not positioned to be selling battery electric vehicles that are better than the internal combustion engines that they have. They still got the internal combustion engine in mind when they're building their battery electric vehicles. The consumer doesn't want a lateral step change. They want an evolution. They want a reason to buy the battery electric vehicle.
Looking at some of the comments coming through here, Jim Farley saying that the shift to this digital experiences breakthrough EV is underway, but it's going to be volatile. And it certainly has been, whether we're talking about cuts that have come through, where the company has said we need a new skill set, looking at the company trying to compete in increasingly crowded space when it comes to EVs. What stood out to you in the numbers that we got so far?
Yeah, I mean, really, when I look at Ford's results, I really compare it to what happened at GM, right? Everybody's focused on, like you pointed out, the 2023 number, and everybody cares about is the EBIT number. They raised that from 9 to 11 billion to 10 to 12 billion. So pretty decent raise in that. Now, with that, the consensus analysts like me were already at like 10.8 billion. So really, it only goes up by maybe about 400 million, but that's still positive news. Now, what we saw from GM is that stock actually sold off, even though they raised numbers. So it'd be interesting to see, like you said, what they say on the call. If you dig into the numbers, definitely good margins out of especially the Blue segment and Pro especially. The EV segment, though, did post lower margins than the consensus expected. But Jim Farley pointed out in the last quarter's call and in other interviews that this is going to be a segment that's going to take a while for costs to come down. I think they said contribution margin break even by year end, and then maybe margin accretive at the end of 2024. So everything here seems to be consistent with what the company wants and has said. The only issue is were expectations coming into the print already, including all this. You said the stock's up 2% after hours, so maybe there is some more upside here.
Tom, how are you looking at just the slowing EV sales growth? Because within this release, you mentioned the fact that Ford Model E's first generation electric vehicles revenue there, it did increase 39% in the second quarter sequentially. Revenue more than doubled, but Farley did point out, Jim Farley, CEO there, pointing out the near-term pace of EV adoption will be a little slower than expected. He's framing it that that's actually going to benefit some of the first movers within this space like Ford. Do you agree with that?
Ford is going through the EV growing pains, and kudos to Ford because they're being fairly transparent with their shareholders. If they can stay the course, endure the pain that is to come, hopefully they'll be just fine.
Yeah, I mean, also you look at where Ford really is, right? Ford's powerhouse is Pro. It's more North American exposed. It's less internationally exposed. So EV adoption in North America is probably slower than it is, right, for Europe or China. So if EV adoption is slow, it probably benefits a company like Ford that's more North America exposed. But, in the long run, though, 24, 25, I do see EV adoption pick up. So it's something that they're going to have to find an answer for eventually.
Tom, what does this stock ultimately trade on? I mean, everything you've said is that when it comes to EVs, as with many other companies, this is a transition. It's a process. You look at the broader market, we're still at 5% of the car market. So is it ultimately valued off of what they're generating on their gas-powered cars? And how should investors be looking at the EV side of things, given the heavy investments that need to go in first in order for the returns to come?
Yeah, I think you have to look at Ford in different parts, right? You have to look at the Blue segment, which is its ICE business, its Pro segment, which is its best business, and then this EV business, you have to kind of look at it differently, maybe value it on a multiple of sales, right? Because it's so forward-looking. So when you separate these businesses and add them together is kind of, I think, how we think you should be looking at this business. But ultimately, I think investors, when they look at this whole group, are really focused on two things. One is the strike potentially coming up in September, and I do think that could weigh on shares as it did on GM. The second thing is people are going to be looking at pricing, right? Pricing is at all-time highs across the group. You see it in these numbers. There's a downshift that's included and implied in this guidance in H2. We also heard that from other companies. Volkswagen reported this morning, said the same thing. GM said the same thing. It's the H2 downshift coming as pricing comes down. So a lot of folks are definitely concerned about if pricing falls, have we already had peak earnings? And then, like I said before, the strike potential impact on that is a big topic.
Yeah, Tom, what do you think that potential impact could look like here? Because at least from the UAW side, they're not backing down. The president there saying that a strike is very much a potential outcome if their needs or their wants are not met. So what does that mean then for Ford?
You know the answer. You know it's not good.
This is really why I think a lot of folks didn't buy into what happened with GM's big beat, is they were thinking, should I just wait maybe until we find out what happens with the strike? If you remember in 2019, GM took a hit of $3.6 billion on EBIT. That is huge. Now, people are thinking maybe there'll be some strike fatigue at GM and maybe they'll come out okay this time around. Ford, from what we're hearing, has good relations with the union, so maybe they won't do as badly. And as we've heard, Stellantis may be the one that could get hit this time around. But it's anybody's guess. But ultimately, what we saw from 2019, if that does happen again, I mean, all of these guys could get hit pretty hard. And it's a question of whether or not investors look past it and just say this is a one-time thing, or do they wait until we see what happens before getting involved in these names.
In conclusion, legacy OEMs are scrambling to meet the growing battery electric vehicle demand and curtail some of the barriers that may exist for their existing internal combustion engine customers thinking about converting to battery electric vehicles. Cybertruck weighs heavily on the minds of many as its long-awaited debut is right around the corner, and just like GM, Ford's earning numbers are pretty decent, but a variety of headwinds keeps the stock suppressed. Out of all of the legacy OEMs, I feel that Ford is best positioned to survive the decade, but there will come a time when they're going to have to sacrifice that limb they call the internal combustion engine. That's all I got for you today. Be easy. Peace.